You are listening to Why Such a Fuss podcast, sponsored by CVG Solutions, with your host, Christina Vanini-Goodchild, and guests.
I'm pleased to have with me Sona Mehta once again. Welcome to the show, Sona.
Thank you so much, Christina. Hello, everyone.
So great, so good to have you. Now, for the audience, for the benefit of the audience, Sonia is a senior law lecturer at the City St George's, part of the University of London, and a qualified solicitor with over 20 years experience in the data protection. Now, following on from one of our previous episodes on the subject of privacy notice, I wanted to continue the theme, and today we're talking about why businesses need to provide a privacy notice to their customers, employees, and users, etc. So, in other words, to what the regulation refers to as data subject. So, now, would you like to explain that?
Sure. Well, the GDPR, as we all know, sets out reasons why people need to be informed of their rights. But the privacy notice is there to actually satisfy the person collecting the data or to satisfy their requirements. So under Article 13, the data collector, the website operator, or wherever the data is being collated, has to explain to the data subject, the end users, why they're processing, why they're using the data, how long they're going to keep this information for, potentially who else has got access to it, who this data is being shared with, if there are any third parties, and if there are third parties, if they're based overseas, not necessarily where overseas, but what controls are in place, security measures are in place to protect that data. And fundamentally, I think the users need to know, or they need to have access to where to find all this information. So we always suggest, have a privacy notice, have it clearly signposted, and make sure that individuals can access it at any time. I think that's broadly the requirements. I'm sure you can add to it, Christina.
No, absolutely. And just to repeat a little bit what we already covered in the previous episode is that the privacy notice, again, for business needs to remember that it is a legal requirement for them to provide it, but it is not a legal document. It's not a contract. It's not legally binding. So you do not need your end users or data subject to agree, to sign, or even to read it. But it is your obligation to make it available to them. And what I would add from what you said, Sona, is also to include how to contact the controller, so the business, if they have complaints, if they have, a request to make. So how do they contact you, to exercise their rights, basically. So that should also be present in the privacy notice.
Yeah. I've seen some privacy notices actually specify the range of rights available to subjects as well, which, again, we've touched on this before. I think the more transparent you are in your notice, the more trust you're going to get from your end user, from the data subject. And actually, I think that can help your business grow.
Absolutely. And again, a lot of businesses see data protection as a burden, but actually, it's an investment and it's an opportunity for you to operate with a higher standard and therefore distinguish yourself from your competitors, and actually gain more business and help your growth. So actually, it should be part of your USP.
And I think it should also be part of your marketing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Positive data protection controls, respect for the rules, but also an understanding of actually we're treating data subjects information, and we do genuinely value that. We know you've got a choice of where you want to submit your information, who you want to leave it with. We're really grateful that you've chosen us, our business,
Yes,
to share that information with.
absolutely, absolutely. And there is also another aspect of privacy notice that is not very often talked about. And this is what is referred to as the Article 14 privacy notice. So this is when a business collects the data from a third party. So in other words, not directly from the individual. So this could be situations where primarily, for example, you're buying data. And so there is an obligation on the business that that obtains this data from a third party to provide the individual with a privacy notice. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about that, Sona?
Yeah, I mean, broadly, the requirements are similar to those of the data controller who actually got the information from the data subject, from the individual.
Yeah.
The controller needs to, the acquirer of the information needs to set out, again, what they're going to do with this data, how long they're keeping it for, where else the data is going. It's broadly the same sort of information, because once again, you're dealing with data subjects and you need to be able to inform the data subjects of their rights and where the information is going and how it's going to be used.
Absolutely. And also with this one, because you're not getting the data directly from the individual but from a third party, so obviously when you're getting data from the individual, you are required to provide the privacy notice at the point of collection. But in this instance, because the data is coming from a third party, then the regulation gives you a month to then communicate or provide a privacy notice to the individuals of the data that you've acquired. But you also need to tell them where you got that data from, or whether it came from a publicly accessible source as well. But everything else is exactly the same as you said, Sona. Yes.
Well, I think the underlying message is it doesn't matter where you've got the data from.
Yes.
If you've got data, you've got to have information about what you're doing with that data, how long you're keeping it, who it's going to, and the usual. As I said, as we discussed, there is no way around it. If you've got information about third parties,
yes,
and you're using that information, you've got to be clear and transparent and have a notice available for individuals to see what's being done with that data.
And actually it happened to me a few months ago. Obviously, I've got a personal email address like everybody does, as well as the business email address. But I remember receiving this communication, which was a privacy notice. Obviously, my data was part of, of a list that had been acquired. And they basically, communicated with me to say, we've acquired your data, we're going to use it for this purpose. Basically, in Article 14 of privacy. I thought that was really good.
You don't often see that.
No, and they were offering me the option to get my data deleted. If you want to be deleted, let us know.
Yeah.
So I replied to say, please delete my data. But actually, I thanked them for their privacy notice, because, and sort of commended them to say, I've never seen this happening. And actually, because of that, if I ever come across them again, they have my respect.
Yeah. Yeah. Because we all get bombarded with spam. And that spam has come from somewhere. Somehow our email addresses have featured somewhere, and inevitably that's going to be via a third party that sold our data on. But yes, okay, half the time we don't open the spam, quite rightly. We've got phishing issues and all sorts. But if we were to open any of those spam, I very much doubt we'll receive a privacy notice.
No, and if I ever need to buy the product that they were selling, I would go to them and not to another, because they were respectful. They showed me that respect, so they've already built trust with me by simply saying that.
Yeah.
So that, that is really how it should be done. And that's what
Absolutely.
so businesses should look at it actually as an advantage, not a disadvantage.
I think you're absolutely right. I think gone are the days where, the more data, the better. I think if anything, people are becoming more and more savvy about the use of personal data, the value associated
Yes.
with data. So if you can demonstrate as a business that you're respectful of individuals' choices and respectful of the value associated, you place a value on data and you're not treating the data as, sales and turnover, I think, it will really stand you in good stead.
So do I. Data is an asset, and it needs to be treated with respect, and obviously, quality. You need to make sure that it's accurate, and so so that was my experience.
That's positive. That's quite nice.
I know it's quite rare because, as I said, it was the only time that I received, an Article 14 privacy notice, but actually there should be more, and
absolutely, yeah.
But so my message is to the audience, whoever is listening, do not ignore Article 14 privacy notice, because actually will go in great stead, as Sona said.
Absolutely. I think the other thing is also, it's all good and well having these databases, but please do make sure you know where they've come from. Because sometimes information comes from, not so respectable or reputable companies, unknowingly to the purchaser of the data, the spreadsheets.
Yeah.
You might think as a business you're purchasing a database of people who are interested in your product, but actually that database might have come from not so respectable individuals or companies. But as Christine said, you can gain the trust of the individuals on that database just by showing them a bit of respect and flagging up that, as we've said, thank you. This is what we're proposing to do with your information. This is how we've got it. And here's your option to get out and waive your right to receive all of these.
Yes.
Which we'll respect and stand by.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So this is a really interesting subject. We could talk about this for hours.
I think we could, yeah. But it'll be only you and me here then.
I know. But thank you very much for your contribution, and thank you again for joining me today in this podcast. How can our audience get in touch with you should they wish to?
It's been an absolute pleasure as always, Christina. Audience can get hold of me via LinkedIn. I'm Sona Mehta, and I hope to see you again soon.
Yes, so do I. And if anyone wants to get in touch with me, you can find me on LinkedIn, Facebook and Instagram. Just search for CVG Solutions. Alternatively, email me at info@cvgsolutions.co.uk. Thank you for watching.